So I saw they had this Unabomber series on Netflix, and I saw the preview to it, and you hear the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski talking on a recording. And I thought that it sounded just like Terence McKenna. And I thought, dang, they look enough alike, sound alike. And then I looked into it, and I saw that they both went to Cal Berkeley, like around the same time. So I was like, oh shoot, maybe I'm onto something here. So I looked it up, and I saw this post on Reddit that somebody was already onto the same thing a year ago. So I decided I was going to look into it, man. I thought this would be a fun rabbit hole to jump in. So let me show you what I found. First, if you're new here, what up? It's your boy Drew. I examine all this stuff from what I call post-conspiracy perspective, and that all these characters on the world stage are just that, actors put in front of you. You know, people like Greta, David Hogg, Donald Trump, and counterculture people even like Terence McKenna and Ted Kaczynski. So let's dig into it. First here it says Terence McKenna and Ted Kaczynski are the same intelligence operative, identical voice, matching cadence, same worldviews. Both are self-described hermits who are vehemently against the system. Both were trained in major colleges under CIA programs around the exact same time. And other people found this thread because they were thinking the same thing about the voice. So they were able to find this Reddit post. So let's listen to their voices. First I'll play Ted Kaczynski and notice that you don't see his face ever, so I guess you don't really know who's talking.
The only way I can think that I might have been somewhat jealous of him was that when he was in high school, he always had lots of friends. He was socially successful, and I wasn't. And I may have had some jealousy about that, though I don't clearly remember that.
Now I'll play some Terence McKenna and you'll be able to hear.
Oh yes, definitely. Some sort of plant substance was prepared and ingested by a priesthood who then used the ecstatic experience induced by that plant as the basis for all of their metaphysical and philosophical speculations on the nature of the universe.
Then I'll go back to some other Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah, usually not all at once. I'll give you, I would say it's the deepest personal relationship that I ever had between my teens and about 1990 when I finally broke off with him.
Right.
I mean, it is definitely really close voice. You know, they were both born roughly the same year. Kaczynski was born in 42, McKenna in 46. They both have brothers that still give speeches to this day, but the brothers don't look anything alike. However, I didn't think the heights were enough of a match, if this is to be believed. Ted Kaczynski was billed as 5'9", and I could only find one source for McKenna's height on all of the internet, but maybe someone else knows. I just didn't see it. But IMDb, owned by Amazon, says he's 6'2", so I didn't think that was close enough to be a match. But it could just be build height too, so I just kept looking. I went and I looked at their handwriting. This is Theodore Kaczynski's handwriting. And you compare that to Terence McKenna's handwriting. So yeah, obviously not a match, but this could just be what they give you. But when you start just creating evidence out of thin air, that's when it starts to just sound like schizophrenia or something like that. And if you haven't figured it out yet, yeah, Terence McKenna died in 2000. But to look at it in this case, you're saying these are world stage operatives, and any birth date, death date, or anything like that is all for show. To me, these guys are both great examples of characters that are used to fool people, even in like the Truth or Movement or whatever. Because even though they're given to you by the mainstream, the people can identify with their ideologies. The mainstream's not going to give you any kind of real counterculture people that would be able to establish any kind of good change. And you always got to remember those writings attributed to Ted Kaczynski. You don't know who wrote those. Either way, you got two real slick talkers here. And let's look into the part of their lives that actually did intersect where they were at Cal Berkeley at the same time. And so there's this great article I found online about the Unabomber being a PSYOP, and it's written by Miles Mathis. I'll leave the link in the comments, but in this article, this guy doesn't put together or even question if they're the same person. He talks about how this guy here named Joseph Tussman, he ran what was called the Tussman Experimental College at Cal Berkeley. Tussman was an Army intelligence in the 40s, And it says one of those who came in on the ground level of this experiment was Terence McKenna, who was recruited for the Tussman Experimental College in its first year, 1965. He was still there in 1967 when Kaczynski arrived at Berkeley. So I didn't see enough here to make a connection and say, yeah, they're the same guy, or even to say they're brothers, even though they look alike. However, I do believe either one of those is possible. But when you look at it from the post-conspiracy perspective, that these are multi-generational psyops to steer humanity in any direction they want to go. Here you have two mainstream characters marketed to people that have seen the absolute checkmate that humanity is in, and there's different ways to cope with it. You can go full doomer, Ted Kaczynski, bug out in the cabin. You know, they say he was tampered with in the Harvard drug experiments. They want you to think that's why his mind went astray. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Terence McKenna character, hippy-dippy baloney and drug pushing. Although that does work for some people, I guess. Both of these guys here are marketed to people that are smart and understand that society needs to be overhauled. And maybe the reason they're at Cal Berkeley together in that program or whatever, and the reason that they sound so similar is because maybe what they're learning there, if it is some kind of spook school or something, maybe they're learning like different NLP techniques, neuro-linguistics programming, and that's why their cadence and the rhythm of their voice and everything is so similar. Possibly, I don't know. I just have to go with the evidence that I'm able to gather. Even though that same evidence is given to you by the system, that's all you can really look at. The other side of the spectrum, besides who they appeal to, is for the people that are all bought into the Babylon system. These people represent threats, and they teach them who to be weary of. For example, if you have a neighbor with a shed with a lot of tools that likes to talk about the government, back then when the Unabomber story is going mainstream, you're probably looking at your neighbor wondering if he is the Unabomber or that same type of character. Is he capable of committing the same notorious acts as the Unabomber? And probably not. It's probably just your neighbor's just a handyman or something. But the Babylon believer will see that and get paranoid and make that subconscious connection that the media is trying to get them to make. And the same as Terence McKenna too. If you don't have the understanding of what Terence McKenna's talking about, you're going to think he's a real kooky and crazy guy and something to be feared. But I've listened to a lot of his talks, and there's lots of gold to pick out of the information he gives off, even though these guys are given to you by the mainstream and everything like that. Collectively, we all got to learn how to, basically just pan their work for gold and just take little nuggets from every source, because these people wouldn't be able to be on the world stage if they didn't give you any truths at all or say anything appealing, And as much as I'd like to believe these are the same guy, I could pull some crazy gematria out of my ass or something and try to make it fit and probably get a huge hit on a video to say, yeah, they're the same guy. But I feel like the whole truth community is going in that direction. It's kind of going off the rails. So I want to do my part to try to bring it back in bounds a little bit. So even though my conclusion is no match, I like all these open source conspiracies, for lack of a better term. So if you have any connections between these guys or whatever, please put them in the comments or make your own video and link it to me, because I want to believe it. I'm just not seeing enough evidence for it. And if you guys want, man, I did 2 live streams about each one of these guys, and I'll have the cards pop up here at the end of the video if you want to check them out. The one about Terence McKenna, I talk about him being at Esalen and admitting he's an agent. Esalen is along the lines of a Tavistock think tank type place. And the one I did about the Unabomber was about not only how he was an obvious psyop looking back at it, but I also went into his connections where some people say the Unabomber is the same guy that was the Zodiac killer, because Kaczynski taught at Cal Berkeley the same time of the most confirmed Zodiac killings. And some people speculate he may also be the Tylenol murderer, if you've ever heard of that. So yeah, if you liked this video, thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. Appreciate your time, and peace out.